I fundamentally believe that knowledge is not quantifiable and it should not be understood in a hierarchical nature. And I know that that is difficult within the space of the academy to hold that kind of ideology. But I really do think that from a fundamental level, to promote someone as smarter than someone else simply because they have three letters behind their name is really problematic. That being said, obviously, those three letters behind my name of PhD grant me access into areas that I might not previously have had access to. And I recognize the privilege that comes with that. But it also can become a barrier in our communities where it then becomes something of tantamount to being a traitor or excluding yourself from the community or being better than your community because you have this higher level of education. And so I think that there's lots of, again, fields to navigate as a person of color with a PhD that oftentimes my white colleagues don't necessarily have to think about. That prestige comes with power, but it also comes with a responsibility to give back to your community and to also value the wisdom and knowledge that is already present in your community that often doesn't have the vehicle to be shared. So I think oftentimes we have this idea that those who don't have access to the institutional academic knowledge, either production or the ability to read or participate in those venues, are less than, but that they have an important voice, but that we should be their voice, right? And I would say that that is a very problematic framework to live within. And I think that's how the academy has typically operated, to give voice to the voiceless, to provide the voice for those who can't speak. And I think that our role should be more about creating avenues through which their own stories can be heard, that we're not providing their voice or giving a voice to those who don't have access to these areas of the academy, but rather creating spaces for those voices to be heard. And I think that's an important shift, and obviously related to language and the way that we frame that. But I think it also philosophically is about, am I here to speak for others, or am I here to provide a venue through which others might speak through me, through a collective sense of knowledge building? And I do not want to be the be-all, end-all, right? I don't know very many people of color who want to say, I speak for my entire group, or I am the voice on this issue. And often I think the hierarchy of the academy really kind of instills that in us, right? That we are an expert in our field, that we have a honed expertise. But I think the collective nature of communities of color, of finding those spaces where there's that shared commitment to an idea of a world that reflects us more equally and socially just, that it can't be only me who's saying that, right? It has to be, how do we build that up and uplift that and magnify the work that's already being done in the community, right? I think if we look at the history of the way the academy has integrated or interacted with communities of color, communities that are low income, any communities of difference, really, it has been this very hierarchical, we have knowledge, we have the resources, we're going to take your knowledge, publish it, and become famous for the work that we do and leave you all behind, right? And communities know that. Communities recognize that this has been a pattern of an academic institution in relationship with community. And so this question of civic engagement becomes very difficult for us to navigate as educators, because I certainly do not want to create or maintain that operation of the academy going into a community, mining it for its resources, turning in a paper, getting published for that, having my students do that kind of work, and my students feel great about themselves. And the community is again in this position of constantly giving and never getting anything back in return. And so, how do we create community spaces for that community knowledge? How do we facilitate learning and value knowledges that are not just in the ivory tower in ways that challenge our notion about what is valid, right? What is knowable? And I think that the members in our communities are valuable sources for that. That storytelling can be a very valuable site of knowledge production that is often devalued in this constant search for facts and truth, right? In a maybe scientific paradigm kind of way, a hegemonic scientific paradigm. That is not beneficial to working with communities. It's not beneficial for creating a socially just world. And I would say the smartest people that I know do not have PhDs, do not have a higher education, maybe haven't even made it through high school, but they've survived. They have thrived in ways that are pretty magnificent that we often don't think about, right? And not to uphold them as some extraordinary thing, but to recognize that we need a diversity of stories, that we need a diversity of understanding what we mean by intelligent and who gets to speak to particular issues, that we shouldn't just rely on those of us who are deemed as the experts in a particular area.